We're now very pleased to have with us representatives from the Dictionary of American Regional English. We have Joan H. Hall, who is the chief editor, and Luanne from Schneidemesser, who is the senior editor of DARE. And they will speak on the South in DARE Revisited.
Between 1965 and 1970, about 80 field workers interviewed Americans in all parts of the country for the Dictionary of American Regional English, or DARE. It took the next 5 years to enter all the responses they received into the computer. This was done using such ancient technology as paper tape and punch cards, something many of you in this room have probably never seen. Computers, big, huge, expensive mainframes filled entire climate-controlled rooms, and you had to pick up any output at a window in the computing center. Access to the room housing the computer was limited to technicians. For the most part, computers were number crunchers. They did not easily deal with alphabetic or alphanumeric material. When they were forced to, the in and output was in what was known as field data, that is, all capital letters. In 1968, Dick Pineski wrote an article for the Journal of American Documentation in which he discussed how DARE was at the leading edge of technology and would edit its dictionary online. As you know, this didn't happen. The time and the technology simply weren't right. In 1981, Osborne came out with a portable computer, suitcase style, which weighed 25 pounds. My husband bought one. It had a mini screen about this big, and you had to scroll back and forth to read a single line. It was very unhandy. The top of the computer suitcase, which one unhooked, contained the keyboard. Around the same time, IBM came out with its PC, or personal computer, with 8-inch floppies, which contained both the operating system and the data you wanted to store. DARE bought one of these in 1983 to enter our text for Volume 1, so we wouldn't have to totally re-proofread it after it came back from the publisher. The PC cost, if memory served, over $6,000. We just want to show you how things have changed since then. DARE's first volume was published in 1985. In 2004, we are finally about to embark on total online editing, Dick Pineski's vision of 36 years ago. We speak of computer memory, thank you, in amounts that couldn't even be stored on those original diskettes, and we speak of storage in terms of gigabytes. Have things ever changed?
When Volume 4 was published in December of 2002, one question that numerous people asked was whether anything had changed with this volume. Yes. Volume 4 benefited from the internet in ways not imaginable for Volume 3, just 6 years before, and certainly not dreamed of back in 1985. With Volume 4, we had a greatly expanded corpus of sources available through digital libraries, through which we could provide more comprehensive treatments of thousands of our entries, not only filling gaps between citations, but also providing quotes that antedated our other material, sometimes by 100 years, and postdated our existing citations. My favorite example of this, the value of these electronic sources, comes from the entry for scrid. In the files that we had amassed from traditional dialect and lexicographic sources, we had 3 citations for the word, which is a variant of the British dialect word screed, meaning a fragment. All of our quotations were from New England, and they all had the sense, a piece, a bit, a scrap. They dated from 1914 to 1982, and on their own, they would have made an acceptable entry. But through the website The Making of America, we found a quote from the Atlantic Monthly in 1860, which said, "Their glass chips and brittle shavings, slender pinkish scrids." And from 1869, Harper's New Monthly magazine came, "Little Gad sat thoughtfully, knitting her pretty brows over a scrid of patchwork." And an 1877 quote from the Atlantic Monthly said, "The wailing day-old baby was brought, a mere scrid and atom of humanity." All of these quotes were from New England, so they expanded and corroborated our initial evidence very nicely. But still, our latest quote was from 1982. So I Googled the word and found a couple of interesting contemporary examples. On Susquehanna University's Web Central was the question, how can one ever hope to find that annoyingly evasive scrid of information in such a large pool of digital information? How indeed. Although Pennsylvania is not New England, it seemed close enough not to entirely destroy our nice, tight regional pattern. We could, to be safe, simply changed the regional label from New England to chiefly New England. But the second Google example was initially disappointing. It was on the website of a lathe maker from Palo Alto, who suggested that the best fix for a particular problem would be to make a pin that's a scrid longer. I was about to just quote the man with a California regional label and regret that this nice little regionalism had crept not just to Pennsylvania, but clear across the country, when I decided to give him a quick email query and ask where he had learned the word. He responded right away, saying, "I remember exactly when I first heard it. My girlfriend from Maine used it. I had never heard it before, so I had to ask her about it." So I have to admit that I was really elated to discover the means by which this solidly New England word had turned up in California. Being a realist, I have to accept the fact that many formerly regional words have either become more widespread or have receded to become relics or to disappear altogether. But, being a sentimentalist, I'm always glad to find regional words that have retained their local distinctiveness. When the invitation came to write about Southern words, we were glad for the chance to investigate how some of the Southern regionalisms in Volume 1 of DARE would fare were we to be editing them today, using not only the e-tools we made use of for Volume 4, but also others that we hadn't used or that have come online since then. Luanne and I decided to join forces in this effort with two primary goals. We wanted to see whether the nearly 35 years since the end of the DARE fieldwork and the present have significantly affected the regionality of selected DARE entries. And we wanted to judge the effectiveness of various websites in supplementing our traditionally collected materials. We could put that knowledge to use both in the continuing work on DARE Volume 5 and in the updatable electronic version that will follow the print edition. But we also wanted to know how cost-effective doing these searches of the web would be. That is, how much time we would need to invest to get what kinds of returns. We started our project by selecting some entries from Volume 1 with maps that showed a concentration in the South and or the South Midland or a sub-region of either of these. We intentionally looked for words and phrases that ought to be easy to search electronically, such as Adam's house cat, as in, I wouldn't know him from Adam's house cat. Amen corner, a corner in churches occupied by highly vocal worshipers, and to holler Cathro, meaning to cry uncle. But we also included some that we knew would be tricky, such as back, meaning to endorse a document or to address an envelope or letter, changed, meaning to castrate, and cap for the small green leaves on the top of a berry. These kinds of common words with multiple senses would require more sophisticated search strategies and might not ever be productive enough to be worth the time they would take. But they would be very real tests of the kinds of problems that will surely face us. A list of the terms we selected, along with their definitions, is included on your handout. Well, it's a painful truth that there will always be many more useful sites than we can visit on a regular basis. We took stock of the sites we are aware of or already familiar with, others that had been used frequently by colleagues on the American Dialect Society discussion list, and those that were available to us either free or through site licenses at the University of Wisconsin Libraries. Fred Shapiro, associate librarian at the Yale Law School, was kind enough to send us the list of sites he commonly uses in preparing his Yale Dictionary of Quotations. For the current exercise, we limited our search to the following sources. Both the University of Michigan and the Cornell sites for the Making of America, American Memory from the Library of Congress, Cornell's Core Historical Literature of Agriculture, the University of North Carolina's Documenting the American South, the University of Virginia E-Texts and Hypertexts, Write American Fiction, ProQuest Historical New York Times and ProQuest News and Magazines, LexisNexis, JSTOR, Utah Digital Newspapers, NewspaperArchive.com, Bartleby, Amazon's Search Inside the Book, as well as Google. Post-dating was addressed largely through ProQuest and LexisNexis searches, plus Google and sometimes Amazon. We made these arbitrary choices of around 20 sites, feeling secure in the knowledge that those sleuths on the ADS discussion list will delight in pointing out earlier, later, or better quotations.